Woo-hoo-hoo. Welcome back, everybody. My goodness, we are live here on the Pull Hook Golf Podcast. So I'd like to welcome everybody to the Pull Hook Golf Podcast. My name is Matt Cook. I'm your host for this evening. And man, are we going to have some fun tonight because holidays are here. Holidays are not around the corner anymore. I mean, they are here. This is the last show before Christmas. Happy Hanukkah for all the Jewish people out there. I don't know when Hanukkah's going on, but I'm pretty sure it's going on sometime soon, or it already happened. So normally when this time of year comes around, I get pretty giddy. Going to be heading back to New York City. But on tonight's show, everybody, whoo-wee. This golf world is crazy lately. It's awesome to be in media right now in this golf atmosphere. There's so much going on. So we're going to talk about the PNC Championship. We're going to recap that. We're going to also be talking about the NBC broadcast team, and there was an announcement made there recently. I'm going to give you my comments around that. Then we're going to talk about Q School. Good old Q School. We were talking about it last week with Kevin Streelman, and certainly we're going to be talking about it this week as well. And then we've got the latest live golf news, and maybe we've got a little PIF action in there with the PGA Tour. There's certainly been a lot going on. So before we do dive into the overall episode and really start to get into everything, I do want to give a shout out and a thank you to our sponsors, Swannies Golf. We're going to start there because I got a nice little Swannies holiday ad read for everybody. So Swannies is here with a fresh take. Performance-based materials are a given these days, but if you're looking for the coziest, most festive pieces that deliver a look that says, I'm here for a good time, or maybe more pie, come take a walk on the Swanee side. Holiday-themed hoodies and beanies are available now at Swannies.co. From family functions to those rare midwinter rounds, your Swanee-style gurus have you covered. Battling the elements and those two helpings of pie are a breeze when you're wearing the best performing, stretchiest gear in the game. Swannies Golf, everybody. Make sure to use promo code PullHookGolf25. Again, that's HOOKGOLF 25 at checkout to get 25% your entire order. All right, that supports the podcast. Keep Swannies coming back as our sponsor. We're hoping that moving into 2024, we're moving forward with Swannies. We're hoping, fingers crossed. Love Swannies. So we also have another sponsor tonight as well. I am drinking it on the show here tonight. This is good old Bushwood Spirits, and man, oh man, I'll tell you what, first, it really started with the Bushwood, with the whiskey, and they sent out 3 of their best bottles out to me. So I got the Long Ball, the Front 9, and then really my favorite, which is the Stillwater Rye. Absolutely love that. But there is a new family member in town, and that is the vodka from Bushwood. This vodka is absolutely phenomenal. So make sure, if you like vodka, especially this time of year, maybe a little Red Bull vodka action, who knows? I don't know what you're into, but that certainly could be a good time. So go to bushwood.com and use promo code PULLHOOK for 10% off your entire order at Bushwood Spirits. So shout out to Bushwood. Thanks again for sending that out. We had 1 bottle for the Kevin Streelman. We have got a couple for tonight, but again, I'm going to be taking some sips here live on air as we get into this episode. We're going to start with the PNC Championship Recap, and Bernhard Langer, the German, with his son Jason Langer, they win at a very impressive 2,500. Now, if you remember, the record is by the Dailies, okay? And the Dailies were 27 under they shot, but Bernhard and Jason, they played just steady, awesome golf throughout the entire tournament. They deserve to win. And guess what, folks? That is their 3rd time winning this golf tournament. So kudos to Bernhard Langer and Jason Langer for winning the PNC Championship. Now, if I must say, do they really move the needle for me? I mean, they are your atypical Germans. They are focused. They are serious out there, even though it's a father-son or father-daughter or daughter or son-mother event out there this past weekend. But they were locked in, man. They really did a great job. You really thought that the Kuchers were going to take it after they had a couple shot lead going into the final round, but they kind of petered out in that final round, which it happens. It happens to the best of us. But what got me excited is that I grew up watching David Duval battle it out in the Masters. I always wanted him to win a major championship, and I was young, and I'm just like, man, I love David Duval, good old Double D. He's out there with his son. They shoot 23 under. It's great to see David Duval back on the golf course playing good golf. It's just that swing is so good. I absolutely love it. And then the returning champions, the Sings, good old Team Sing. They finished in third with 22 under. But I know that's not why you want to be going over the PNC Championship Recap, okay? I completely understand it. You want to go over this thing because of one name and one name only. Well, that might not necessarily be the case. There might be two names. But certainly Charlie Woods steals the show again. And you know what I love lately is that we've started actually growing our Twitter account, our Twitter X. Good old X. And within doing that, we've started going into some battles with some Live Golf social media accounts. I mean, there are some, talk about just being so one-sided and biased and just full of propaganda, man. It is absolutely insane to me, some of those Live Golf accounts. I really wish that we'd put more of a positive spin, and even on this show, for golf in general, and just bringing everything together. And, that's why I pride myself on trying to be as neutral as humanly possible. I'm Switzerland out here. I love Live Golf. I love the PGA Tour. I love everything. If it's golf related and going to be good for the game and going to grow the game of golf, especially for people that necessarily aren't, the biggest golf fans, but because of Live Golf now all of a sudden they're interested in it, that's great to me. So when all of a sudden I see these accounts just shitting on Charlie Woods, I'm like, hang on a second. Like, all of a sudden, there's all this debate around, and I'm getting asked by people around me. They're asking me, hey, what do you think about Charlie Woods? And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, do you think, is it bad? Is it good? I'm like, what are you talking about? Charlie Woods is awesome for the game of golf. Tiger Woods, everybody, he was the one that moved the needle in golf, folks. He's the one that brought it from Arnie and Jack to what it is today. Really, there hasn't been a golfer since. You could throw in Rory McIlroy, you can throw in Jon Rahm, you could throw in some of these other players that have come along that have played absolutely phenomenal, Scotty Scheffler, but really the guy who moves the needle is Tiger Woods. And for this tournament to have Tiger and Charlie and just the mannerisms and everything that Charlie's doing out there, it's pretty sweet to watch and to see. And I just really feel like this is great for the game of golf. And if you don't like Charlie Woods chipping in, or you don't like him driving par fours, then you don't like the game of golf at all. Like, that might be a blanket statement, but you don't like golf. You don't deserve to be in golf at that point. So even if you absolutely are so one-sided with Live Golf, and I totally understand, there's some people that just, got a bad taste because of the PGA Tour taking the stance that they did in the beginning and everything, and just absolutely love Live Golf and feel like they're jaded because of the PGA Tour, and everybody's against them and everything. But you can't hate on a junior golfer as Charlie Woods is, with so much hype around this kid, and for him to go out there and do what he's doing. Now, is he the best junior golfer in the world right now? No, but that's okay. Like, I don't think the media is building him up as the top junior golfer in the world. You have to understand the perspective here that around Charlie Woods, you have an environment of Tiger Woods being involved. You get the excitement of seeing Tiger's son And on top of that, he's playing good golf, which is awesome to see. And again, it reminds me so much of watching Tiger in the early days and everything, just the mannerisms, especially with the chip in, giving the fist pump and everything. It was absolutely phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. So Charlie Woods, keep doing what you're doing, man. Don't let the media get you too hyped, because the quote that I always say is expectations are the killers of dreams. Because when all of a sudden there's way too much hype that now no human being can possibly live up to, then you're always going to end up failing. So get rid of the expectations. Oh, and then the other thing was too, I got asked, it's like, oh, do you think he's too cocky out there? No. You got to have an ego out there on the golf course. You got to have that swagger. And I also think that that's good showmanship as well. To have a little bit of that arrogance out there, that thinking, hey, I'm the absolute best player out here. Even if you're not, it's like that's the way that you should carry yourself in golf tournaments, especially if you're trying to win, because you have to believe in yourself in order to get to the point to where you believe in the fact that you can win a golf tournament. So, and at the level that he's going to be playing at, because certainly can't wait for him to go to college. Can't wait to follow his college career. Can't wait for him to, and the biggest thing is, and I think the broadcast did a really good job. Peter Jacobson did a great job of this during the broadcast, is talking about if Charlie really wants to do this, if Charlie really loves the game of golf and wants to play at that level. And then he followed it up with, everything coming from Tiger and so forth, is that he absolutely loves putting in the work and doing the work in order to get to that level. And that's what you have to appreciate out of Charlie Woods and the PNC Championship and what that brings. But there is another name that, for me, I just absolutely love this kid too. Good old Will McGee, man. Annika Sorenstam's son. He's just a breath of fresh air. The kid is phenomenal. I absolutely love watching him play the lefty. He gets up there. His short game is so good, and he's fearless, absolutely fearless out there. You could tell just the pride coming from Annika. Annika's normally a pretty serious, focused individual as well, and has had just an absolutely awesome Hall of Fame career, but you're seeing the pride that she has in her son of doing what he's doing. He's a fan favorite. The people love him out there at the PNC Championship. He really came onto the map last year, and this year just continued on. So you got to love that. As golf fans, this is the time of year where golf can get a little silly. But this is a tournament that warms my heart to see the family aspect being such a big part of this golf tournament. I hope PNC never changes this championship. I hope they always sponsor it and keep this going, because this is an absolute godsend for all of us to be able to witness and watch these relationships within this family, within all of these families that are taking place. I mean, you got Nelly Corda out there with her dad, Justin Thomas with his dad. I mean, it's a really, really cool golf tournament to watch. And then I also love the fact that with Will McGee, he's starting to get on social media a little bit. So I always kind of get a little bit hesitant when kids that young are getting into social media and everything. And I know the parents are running the account, or at least the dad is, but they had him going around. And I thought this was a great piece of content for social media. He's going around to all of the past major champions and asking them what is the most important aspect of a golf game in order to play at the highest level and so forth. And it's awesome because it cuts to John Daly, then to Justin Thomas, and so on and so forth. And everybody's saying pretty much the same thing, that it comes down to short game, that your short game, go focus on your short game, practice your short game nonstop, because when you're always going to have days to where you don't have your golf swing. You're always going to have days to where you're going to miss fairways, you're going to miss greens. And the biggest thing is when you're around the greens that you can get up and down. And really, that's the biggest focus for anybody out there that's trying to get better. Just go practice. You're going to hear a lot about this next week as we wrap up the team series on this podcast. So there's not going to be a live stream next week, but there will be a podcast episode that we recorded yesterday with my instructor, Mike Correa. And it is, we'll see how long the interview ends up being, but we sat down for 2.5 hours going back and forth. And that's one of the things that ultimately came up is like, you have to go out there and you have to learn from failing. And especially with short game, you have to know why certain shots happen the way that they did. And short game is a major, major factor. So love that content coming out of Will McGee and Annika and the dad there. So absolutely awesome. And again, one of the big reasons why, I mean, the PNC Championship, I'll state this. The major championships clearly take rank over everything else, right? In terms of what I love to watch as a golf fan and as a golf fanatic. So with that said, then you get the Players Championship. You get some of these other big tournaments. I love the Waste Management Open because it happens in my backyard here in Scottsdale, Arizona. But then you got the PNC Championship. The PNC Championship for me right now is at that level to where I'm just like, man, I love watching the PNC Championship. It's like I need 3 days just to sit down on the couch and watch this golf tournament because it brings out so much joy. And I love the family aspect to it. Everybody gets brought together. I mean, you had Steve Stricker's entire family out there. You got Tiger bringing out Sam, his daughter, who I believe just turned 16. She's out there caddying for Tiger. She's chopping it up with Charlie. Just a great scenario from the woods. And I mean, again, if you don't like this golf tournament, I don't think you should really like golf at all. I know that's a broad statement, but this tournament is absolutely awesome. And I'm not being a homer on it because I got no attachment to it whatsoever. I mean, it is just one that has come up. And, you know, it took some years in order for this tournament to become what it is. It wasn't always just this way to where it was like, oh, this is a great time of year. Make sure to watch the PNC Championship. Really, it came onto the map when Charlie and Tiger played. That's what put it on the map. That's why you can't hate Charlie Woods for doing what he's doing and having a little bit of confidence and a little bit of arrogance behind him. Again, I absolutely love that. I think you need an ego out on the golf course, and Charlie Woods certainly has that charisma, that spunk. Remember when Tiger came out and he sat down with Curtis Strange in an interview, and he was very, very confident that he was going to come out and he was just going to start winning and start dominating. And Curtis Strange was like, yeah, you'll see. You'll see. And it's one of the most famous interviews because what did Tiger do? Tiger came out and proved, no, I'm going to win golf tournaments coming right out of the gates, and I am going to dominate on this tour. And he obviously did for a very long time. But you got to have that self-belief, that confidence, that arrogance, that ego behind you in order to play at that kind of level and have that self-belief. And that's something that I know Tiger is instilling in Charlie, because he talks about how he tosses tees at him, tosses balls just like his dad did, tries to get into his head. And he even had a quote to where he said, listen, if I can no longer get into Charlie's head, then nobody can get into Charlie's head while he's out there playing golf. So that's pretty cool to see it come full circle from what Tiger learned from his dad, being able to share that with Charlie. And again, that's what put this all on the map. And now we see all these great families coming together. It's just, again, such a cool thing. Even the Kuchers, I mean, gosh, Cameron Kuchar looks just like his dad, and not similar swings, but there's some similarities within those two swings to where you just see those tendencies and everything that goes on. So again, pretty cool scenario there. Absolutely love the PNC Championship. Moving into our next segment, which is around the NBC broadcast team. There's another shakeup. There's another announcement. And this one's actually kind of cool. And I didn't even think about it when I was talking about a couple weeks ago, the NBC broadcast team. And I kind of wanted to see somebody that, was younger, that could bring the modern era to the game of golf. And certainly I think NBC did it with this one. Let me take a sip of this Bushwood real quick, and I'll tell you all about it. So I know a lot of people, if you're on social media, you probably have seen the announcement already, so I'm not breaking any kind of news here. But Kevin Kisner is going to join the booth for 2 tournaments. once again, I think this is a little bit of kind of feeling him out, seeing how good he's going to be, seeing if he can be that next big, media personality, because we've seen players in the booth and it works out a lot of times. Sometimes it doesn't. But with Kevin Kisner, he's got that spunk. He's got that charisma to him. He's got some good one-liners. He's got some comedy to him. So I'm interested to see how this plays out. I mean, they kept replaying. I saw it a lot this week around this conversation with Kevin Kisner is his interview at one of the tournaments. I forget exactly which one it was, where the media was asking him, "You think you can win every golf tournament you play in, right?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "I can't compete at Bethpage." He's like, "I can't compete at a couple of these courses." And the guy goes, "Well, why do you play in them then?" And he goes, "Because they pay a lot of money for 20th place." And so things like that kind of response, that quick instinct, I think that's going to be pretty cool to see. And I hope he's successful, because I think he can be a home run in that role as a broadcast analyst. Now, that being said, he's 38 years old, still has a ton of game, but this past year, we kind of saw his game not really there like it's been. Like, he's a pretty consistent player, but it really wasn't quite there. Could he have been losing a little bit of interest? I don't know. I haven't talked to Kevin about it. I don't know his agent. I don't know people he's affiliated with, so I don't really know. I'm sure that, Barstool, if you guys are listening, go ahead and reach out to your boy Kiz, because Kevin Kisner, he's been on the Barstool podcast, and certainly he is somebody that we're going to enjoy listening to, I feel like. So he's going to do the Century Tournament of Champions, and then he's going to do the Waste Management Open, and we'll see if he gets a big offer after that to fulfill the entire season and really kind of retire at that point. But we saw it with Peter Jacobsen as well, I believe, to where he went into the booth at 38 years old. And then from there, after a few years in the booth, went back and played again on the professional ranks. So we shall see what it is all cut out to do for Mr. Kisner, but I'm excited about it. I like people that have opinions, and I like people that have charisma and can bring some comedy into it. I mean, he's the one that said, "This ain't no hobby. It ain't no hobby." So Kevin Kisner, shout out to you. I hope you do absolutely awesome in those first two events of the year with the Century Tournament of Champions and then the Waste Management Open for the NBC broadcast team. All right, moving on, and I've got an apology to make. So again, I'm going to take a little sip here of the Bushwood Spirits, and the one that I'm drinking tonight is the Front Nine, the Black Label Front Nine. This is tasty. It's got a little bit of sweetness to it. It's a delicious whiskey. I mean, I'm a big whiskey guy, but Bushwood I've been a fan of since day one, and we've had a pretty good relationship with them sponsoring some episodes and everything. So once again, thank you guys. All right, so Q School results, and I'll start with an apology. So I was talking with Streels last week, and if you caught it in that interview, it was pretty late into the interview. We both had pretty much a full glass of Bushwood Spirits at that point, and we were talking about the fact that I didn't realize that the PGA Tour made the change with being able to go to Q School and actually get a PGA Tour card again. So this is the first time that they're doing this since 2012. So it's been a decade. So I missed that one. I apologize. It's not going to happen again. It might happen again. I'm human. I make mistakes. But we were talking about the fact that it is a little bit weird that you can't go to Q School and earn your PGA Tour card. That used to be the coolest thing about Q School. And so there were 5 slots that were getting PGA Tour cards. Well, first of all, it didn't happen on the Sunday that it was supposed to, because there was some terrible weather, absolutely terrible weather down at TPC Sawgrass and Sawgrass Country Club. Just not a good situation there. So they canceled it out on Sunday. They said, nope, too much rain, too much wind. The conditions are awful. We're going to push this to a Monday finish. So A lot of you, I know, on Monday, you're like, man, it's the holidays. This is probably the last week I'm working for a couple of days. And then, we're right at the holidays and the end of the year for the new year. So a lot of people just kind of packed it in on Monday and watched the Q School. I was listening to a guy talk about it with his trainer in the gym today. And I'm just like, yeah, man, like Q School, it's becoming bigger and bigger. And it's cool that the Golf Channel covered it and gave full coverage. Shane Bacon did a good job on there. And certainly with 5 PGA Tour cards going out, it was a lot of pressure, and you saw it from a lot of guys. And by the way, Monday was not just a dream day because it was on the cooler side, but it was also very windy. So while it was dry and it was sunny out, that wind played a major factor. So for the guys that tend to struggle a little bit in the wind, guess what? They struggled. And there were some higher scores out there. But kudos to Harrison Endicott because he went out. And granted, they played, once again, Sawgrass Country Club, which is right there at TPC Sawgrass, and they played the Dyes Valley course. They played it at about 6,800 yards, so it didn't play super long. However, it played longer because the ball wasn't rolling out because it was still wet. You had a lot of wind, and so Harrison Endicott goes out and wins it at 15 under. 4-shot victory for him. So he's heading back to the PGA Tour. That's going to be good to see him back out there. I know he's with Ping, and a lot of good guys coming from the Ping camp as a manufacturer. So looking forward to seeing a lot of Harrison Endicott out there this year. In second was Trace Crow at 11 under. Then we had Blaine Hale Jr. at 9 under. And then 2 tied for fourth, which was Raul Pereda and Hayden Springer, who finished at 8 under. And then the top 40 end up getting status on the Korn Ferry Tour. So you've got some notables out there like Doc Redman. I actually met with his caddy when I was up at the Shriners back in Vegas a couple months ago with Bobby, and we had a good little chat. No, he's a listener of the podcast, and so shout out to you, Zach. But Doc Redman, he's going to have Korn Ferry status. We've got Fred Biondi. So the NCAA national champion from North Carolina, he turned pro. And it was interesting to hear Shane Bacon kind of talk about him, that he was kind of a disappointment this year, but he made multiple PGA Tour cuts. He played really well in PGA Tour events. He just didn't end up getting full status. And so he's going to be on the Korn Ferry Tour, which I think is going to do him really well. And I look forward to a lot out of Fred Biondi. And we're going to see him on the PGA Tour throughout the year as well. I know there's going to be some sponsor exemptions. There's going to be some ability for him to qualify for some events. So look forward to seeing Fred Biondi. And then a special one that Bobby and I absolutely love, Spencer Levine. Now, Bobby knows him really, really well. Myself, I played, my big claim to fame with Spencer Levine is I played in a Monday qualifier with him way back in the day, going back, 20 years ago now, to when we played together in that Monday qualifier for the BC Open back in Endicott, New York. And he ends up getting his Korn Ferry status. He was right there in terms of being able to get his PGA Tour card back, but struggled a little bit throughout the day. There were quite a few squares on his scorecard. And if you know what a square on a scorecard is, that's a bogey or worse. And then there were some circles out there too for him. So I wouldn't say that he didn't play well, but it was a tough day out there. Kyle Westmoreland, he's another one that we've talked about on this podcast that we expect big things from in the future. He's going to be on the Korn Ferry Tour. We've got Kevin Tway, Bob Tway's son. Russell Knox is going to be out there, and then Eric Compton, notable from the heart replacement and everything that took place with good old Eric Compton. So good to see that he's going to have some status on the Korn Ferry Tour. And that wraps up a bit of our analysis around the Q School results. I never went to Q School. I played on the mini tours and kind of stuck to that. We had Blake Parks on the podcast, who was a teammate of mine at Grand Canyon University on the golf team, and he ended up getting his status on there years ago. And certainly it was something that I was like, man, maybe at some point I should do that. Who knows? You know what? There's still time left, but not making any promises there that I'll ever compete in Q school. But you never know. You never know in this life. So that being said, pretty cool to see Q School getting the hype and kind of the attention that it deserves and getting some TV time as well, especially on a Monday when nobody wants to work. All right, so as we move beyond that, gosh, I'm going to need another sip here. I feel like in between segments, it's just the Bushwood Spirits is calling my name. I still have way too much of it left. Drank way too much of it last night, by the way. And we also did that interview in a Drive Box. So Drive Box is going to be sponsoring that episode as well. It was a really cool setup, and can't wait for everybody to listen into that one. But again, going to take a little swig here. God, that's good. And if anybody has any questions, by the way, feel free to throw them in the comments. Absolutely feel free. I've got millions.co up here. I've got YouTube. It's also streaming live on as well. Even if you just want to say hi, go ahead and put something into those comments. But yeah, I'll see them because I've got everything up here. Now, that being said, we are moving into one of my favorite topics lately, which is the PGA Tour and PIF update. Okay, I've been talking with a lot of people that are around the entire inner workings here, and I'm starting to get some headway around all of this with kind of understanding where everything is at right now. And one of the first ones that, if you have been following us on Twitter lately, you would know that we've been talking about Tony Finau a bit with his discussions that went on. He was very close, by the way, folks. So it's like he had a very big price because he knew that it was going to be a bit of a hit. Still, he saw what happened with Jon Rahm. He saw the reactions and everything. And I don't know necessarily if that is what scared him a little bit. But also the PGA Tour came out very quickly after Jon Rahm's announcement and mentioned and talked about the sports strategic group that they're bringing together as a private equity source that's going to bring in $3 billion into the PGA Tour. So that is a great situation for the PGA Tour. That's a great situation for the players that have stayed. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be strangleheld or pigeonholed. Pigeonholed? I don't know exactly what that saying is, obviously. But they're not being pinned into a corner. There's another saying for you. But they're not being pinned in a corner anymore in these negotiations with PIF because they have now that additional investment coming in. So they're not as desperate as they were, or at least they don't look as weak anymore to PIF. And one of the things that I have been hearing is that everything going on in the negotiations, first of all, it's not just Patrick Cantlay. He's representing the tour player side and doing a lot of the talking, but they're all collaborating together as far as him, Jordan Spieth, Tiger Woods, and so forth. But there is a bit of a disconnect, okay? Because those players that stayed on the PGA Tour want their cut. They want their money that they missed out on by not going to Live Golf. And they're adamant about this. Now, on the other side of things, you've got some guys that are like, hey, we can't just take care of us. We got to take care of the entire tour because look at how many guys are out there. It's not just the top players in the world that matter. And there's a disconnect there. And I have heard that it is very segregated in terms of the differing opinions around this. And it has led to some very sharp commentary that has been going on. Now, Tony Finau, he did announce that he is going to be playing on the PGA Tour in 2024. Everybody's going to leave the door open, okay, to live golf. It would be stupidity not to, because who knows when they're going to go, hey, you're going to be the first player that gets $1 trillion. $1 trillion. And PIF the Magic Dragon could do something like that. I mean, shit, John Rahm got $600 million. $600 million. That is more than what baseball players are making right now. And golf is not nearly as big or as large of a revenue generator in the professional ranks as Major League Baseball is. So this is absolutely nuts to see these type of contracts going out. They're not looking to recoup their money. Like, they know this is a sunk cost right now. Hopefully down the road, they're looking at it for different reasons that I'm not going to get into. But the PGA Tour is a bit of a mess. Certainly the $3 billion coming in from private equity kind of gave some hope to some of the additional players like Tony Finau, to where he's like, okay, I'm going to get taken care of. I'm one of the top guys. I'm going to win multiple times on tour on a yearly basis, continuing. My game's in great shape. Let me go ahead, and we're just going to make sure that I'm staying put. And that's going to keep his reputation intact. I think with how much he is kind of a family guy, I won't go further than that, but as a big family guy and as somebody that, and by the way, the live golf accounts on Twitter were going nuts. They were, and then all of a sudden the justification, because they were saying Tony Finau's signing with live golf. He's going to be joining John Rahm's team. We got all these players that are battling for spots because they're doing negotiations, this and that, and so on and so forth. And granted, there was a really high probability that Tony Finau could have gone to live golf, but they never ended up meeting his number, and certainly the negotiations didn't pan out. So Tony Finau, once again, is staying with the PGA Tour. Then it was Victor Hovland. Victor Hovland's getting these huge offers from live golf, and all the justification as soon as Victor came out and said, I'm not joining live. But what was awesome about Victor Hovland, and that's why this is an unfiltered golf podcast, because we tell it how it is. You got to be authentic. You got to be you. And that's what I loved about the Kevin Streelman interview last week. If you haven't heard that interview, go back and listen to it, because he was really honest about everything. And it was cool to see, because, somebody like Kevin Streelman can be pretty polished and being politically correct in responses and everything. And there were some that even surprised me, that I'm just like, wow, that was awesome to hear that from somebody like him who's been on the tour for such a long period of time. But then you get such a nice guy, right? Let's remember who Victor Hovland is. Does Victor Hovland come out and talk bad about anybody? No. He doesn't. He is always Mr. Smiles. I have joked about it during the FedEx Cup, to where he went from being this kid who was just ripping bong rips, it looked like. Granted, I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying that he always had a smile on his face, was always happy-go-lucky out there on the golf course, and then really turned into a bit of a robot, to where he was just dead serious throughout the entire FedEx Cup and ends up winning it, right? Well, sure enough, Victor Hovland really showed his authenticity this past weekend, to where he was interviewed about not going to live golf. And he said this is quoted: "The management has not done a good job. They almost see the players as labor and not as part of the members. After all, we are the PGA Tour. Without the players, there is nothing," he continued. "When you then get to see what happens behind closed doors, how the management actually makes decisions which are not in the players' best interest, but best for themselves and what they think is best. They are not professional golfers at all. They are businessmen who say that, no, it should look like this and that. There is a great deal of arrogance behind it." Woo! Victor Hovland. Once again, that came from Victor Hovland, okay? And I in the beginning of all of this, when the whole Live Golf PGA Tour when Live Golf came about and the PGA Tour was starting to make moves and everything, and I started looking at it all, I was very critical of the PGA Tour. I was very critical of Jay Monahan, which, by the way, everybody tells me Jay Monahan is an awesome guy, okay? So that's from the players, that's from agents, that's from caddies. Everybody thinks he's a great dude that just is super personable. Guys like him, okay? So it's not like that to where he's this shitty ruler or commissioner that is just, somebody that everybody hates. That's not the case. But the business dealings and how this has all gone about. I mean, at one point on this podcast, I read the actual, from the PGA Tour, what their mission is. And it's all about the players. And I'm like, this is not what's going on right now. This is not for the players. And I talked about that with the stance that they took against Live Golf, with suspending players and this and that. Like, they were not doing it for the players, okay? So they were outside of their mission statement. They were outside of all of this. And I have to agree with Victor Hovland that there is a lot of arrogance. There's a lot of egos that are in there that are trying to make these decisions. And I think the majority of the PGA Tour is fed up with the decisions that are being made by a select few. And that's very frustrating for a lot of these guys. And even somebody who is one of the top players on the PGA Tour, like Victor Hovland. Now, has he been a top player for several years? You could argue no. Like, he did come out of college, won right away. I mean, he's been a winner on tour, but this year was really his breakout year with how he performed, especially in majors. And next year, we're expecting huge things from Victor Hovland. I mean, I'm absolutely pumped to see him playing that well. But that's where, as golf fans, we got to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and go, man, this whole PIF thing didn't go well. This could have gone in a very different direction. This could have been from day one. And I know there's a lot of voices out there that talk about this, that from day one they made the mistake. Well, I was spouting about it from day one, okay? As soon as they put that line in the sand, they had the players meeting at Riviera at the Genesis Invitational 2 years ago. I was talking about it. So there's a lot that has gone on. And again, I'm interested to see if this deal, and actually, I'm just going to come out and say it. I don't think this deal goes down with PIF. I think this deadline it's not going to happen. Okay. We've got the holidays. We've got New Year's Eve. Like, it's not happening. The entire PIF deal. And I don't think it's happening. I think this private equity gave the PGA Tour some leverage and some additional time to basically go, okay, peace treaty's off. Go ahead. You already poached Jon Rahm, so it was already off to begin with. And you can continue to go down that path. Now, if you go back, and I keep saying, if you go back in this podcast, if you keep going back to this podcast, we've been talking about it. Well, I did talk about what I assumed was actually going to take place. That this entire negotiation and framework could be just so that Liv wasn't continuing to poach players, that it also gave them leverage in conversations with private equity. Now, come full forward to this day and time, and now all of a sudden we see, okay, they're going to get $3 billion from private equity, and this deal with PIF is nowhere close to being done. Now, do they want the Saudis involved? And that's an answer that, or a question that I hear a lot, even from players, okay? That it's like, hey, could this be a good thing? There's some players that are very much so like, hey, we've already sold our souls in getting into negotiations and into this framework agreement. So let's make sure that we get the money. And I think that's the last thing that is going on right now, that it's like, okay, are they just going to take the money and hope that, because what happens in a couple years? And next thing you know, Live Golf has stolen some more players because they're offering close to $1 trillion. I can't even believe that we're talking about $1 trillion in a golf contract. Absolutely insane. The other part that I do want to mention is that John Rahm, and this is coming from camp that is very close to John, to where he really felt, and I posted this on Twitter, around really the big three reasons why John Rahm went to LIV Golf. And the biggest one to me is that he believes, and by the way, this is something that I have heard from people from club manufacturers about their players that have gone to LIV Golf. Okay. And when I say this, it is something that is a belief with a lot of players that eventually these two tours, so to speak, one a league, one a tour, obviously, are going to merge. So why not take the money now? The money got so good and it became so much that why not just take the money now? And that's essentially what happened, okay? So John Rahm, and the other thing that I love propaganda-wise, and this is on both sides, by the way, for this one, is that he is, there's a conspiracy, but it was him who created it, saying that I can't do any media or press until, the start of the season. And everybody ran wild with that. You got the LIV Golf side that is trying to say, no, we're not prohibiting him from being able to go out and speak to the media. Then you got, the people on the other side. I feel like this has become almost politics, which is ridiculous for the game of golf. Can we just quit it, guys, and literally just start to promote the game of golf again and get back to that? So that is one of the interesting things. But again, I've heard it from people that have gone to LIV previously, and in the beginning of all of this, that they really, like, agents have been telling them to. And granted, agents are compensated very heavily from these contracts that they're getting from LIV Golf. So obviously they're going to be pro LIV in a lot of ways. And that's another thing that players really have to kind of figure out for themselves too. Is my agent that's working on this deal really in it for me, or is he in it so that he gets a lot of additional cash as we move into next year? That's enough with the PGA Tour and PIF for now. My stance on it, I don't think it's going to happen before the new year. And it'll be interesting to see if those negotiations continue to go on. I think PIF wants them to continue to go on because I think PIF's main agenda was always to be able to be a part of the PGA Tour in terms of cash investment and being able to be a part of that. And I think that only helps LIV Golf if they are. If not, we're going to see this divide. And we also did throw out a survey, and a lot of you feel like that either the two entities are going to remain separate forever, or that it's going to happen within the next year to 2 years, that everything's going to merge and everybody's going to be back playing in everything. So we shall see. And then also John Rahm has the ability to play in the majors after winning the Masters this year, where his official world golf rankings are right now. He's going to be making it into all the majors for a couple years. So it's a pretty safe bet, but he does not, by the way. And I'm trying not to speak for John, but the format didn't change to where all of a sudden he woke up and was like, oh man, I want to play LIV Golf. This is what I want to do. No, it was a money move. He knows it. Everybody knows it. And that's what's disappointing about some of that press conference stuff. Like, they force-fed him a lot of lines that took place. And I'm not just saying that. It's very obvious. Like, so as we kind of move into our final segment. Damn, that Bushwood is good. Latest LIV Golf news. You know, it's my favorite topic to talk about, LIV Golf. It just keeps spawning awesome stuff all the time. And here's the thing. I'm no longer a Range Goats fan. And I'm going to tell you why. Because on Twitter, when all of that went down with the trade for Taylor Gooch to Matthew Wolff, it really soured me on the fact that these guys are taking this team aspect seriously. That this is a competitive golf league. that these teams matter. It has been force-fed to all these guys that that's what you got to say. And then I'm a big believer in it's not your words, it's your actions that are going to tell me. I'm not going to believe you just based off of what you tell me. And that certainly took place in this situation, especially to where when Taylor Gooch got traded and then all of a sudden Harold Varner the third gets sent off to the Four Aces, which, by the way, in the first year we saw this take place to where Taylor Gooch wasn't getting along with Dustin Johnson, with Pat Perez, and who else was on? Patrick Reed. Wasn't really getting along with those guys. Didn't really want to travel with those guys. So what happened in Live Golf? Before now, all of a sudden, there's going to be trades. There's going to be free agency. There's going to be the qualifiers. Remember, go back a season prior. And what happened? Taylor Gooch gets moved over to the Range Goats. And Peter Uihlein ends up going to the Four Aces. This is a popularity contest, and that is what I'm being told by everybody. So I know these Live Golf Twitter accounts absolutely hate this because they say, no, this is a good trade. Matthew Wolff is great. He's going to play amazing. He might, okay? But that's not why you ended up seeing this trade take place. This was, as I like to refer to, an inside job. This was the Live Golf League flexing their muscles because you would never give up one of your top players. Like, you could get Matthew Wolff for the worst player on the team, which I guess that technically was Bubba Watson, so he's the captain, so that's not going to happen. So that's flawed right there. But that being said, Brooks would have given up Matthew Wolff for nothing. Like, he just wanted him off his damn team. So it became very much so a popularity contest when it came to that. And that's what we saw with the Matthew Wolff Taylor Gooch trade. It's disappointing, man. It really is. And then to ship off Harold Varner III for Peter Uihlein. Like, that's not a serious trade either. And everybody that I talk to that knows golf all thinks the exact same thing. So this isn't a wild, crazy thought to have. It's the fringe people that are like on the fringe that are like, no, Matthew Wolff is the best golfer in the world. It's like his results aren't there. Data's not there. And why would you ever give up somebody who was your top player, who won multiple times last season and won the entire individual rank? And then sure enough, the Range Goats confirmed it for me. So I ended up retweeting one of their tweets and or re-quoting one of their tweets, and sure enough, I go, so Range Goats are confirming that they believe that Taylor Gooch is, I think I said something along the lines of washed up or has peaked, and Matthew Wolff is the better talent. Something along those lines. Go back, look at the tweet, and sure enough, the Range Goats responded, and they liked the post. So right there, you're just like, okay, I get it now. Like, Bubba Watson, we've heard. I mean, there's millions of stories about Bubba. And, like, if Bubba doesn't get along with you, Bubba rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And I'm not saying that Bubba's a bad guy at all. But here's the thing. Taylor Gooch, he just was like, yeah, we're not getting along. Boom, see ya. And who are the two buddies? Taylor Gooch and Harold Varner III. So those two guys are buds. They get moved to separate teams. That is not just a trade. That is an inside job right there, which it's disappointing, okay? That's where I'm coming from as a sports fan. I want to see competitiveness. I want to see a trade that goes on. And then, of course, by the way, when I posted that video that I did, yeah, I meant it to be that I was a bit over the top with that video. And it was mainly because, like, from kind of the start when the Range Goats came about and their logo, I'm like, I guess I'm going to be a Range Goats fan. And when that happens and you see your two best players on the team get traded away for players that are not as good as them, it's like, damn. So when that all took place, I'm at a loss for words with that entire trade, to be honest with you, and I'm kind of tired of it. But no, when that actually took place, like, and in Twitter, I tagged some of the live golf enthusiast accounts and so forth. And I wanted to see, like, hey, do they have like any insider information about this and everything? And of course, they all start throwing out propaganda. Oh, it's all money based. You don't understand contracts. You don't understand this. You don't understand that. What's going on here? Oh my God, my live golf, my little puppy, it just got stepped on. No, I'm not stepping on your damn puppy, okay? That's not what is happening here. I just wanted to find out, hey guys, like, is there something going on, or like, is this just a straight up trade? And everybody knew that it was a bad trade. All the live golf accounts, because they were defending that it was a money thing that was going on. And I'm like, no, they're not reporting anything about money. And if it was in the background, by the way, about contracts and all this and that, well, then they need to come out and be transparent about it. Who wants to be a fan of a sports league that's just going to keep everything on the inside? Nobody. Nobody wants to freaking see that. And I'm sorry, like, I don't want to be a fan of something to where everything's on the inside. I used to have this problem with the PGA Tour when they wouldn't announce any suspensions or anything like that. Like, I've always had an issue with that. So don't think that this is just a live golf thing. No, I hate that the PGA Tour tries to keep things hush-hush and everything. So I like it when this stuff is transparent and when we can actually talk about it and have a really good, smart conversation around it. But that's my soapbox about the Taylor Gooch trade, because I didn't get to talk about it last week because I was on with Streels. Now, the cool thing about live golf right now is that, and we're not seeing it across the entire league, okay? So don't get me twisted when I talk about the fact that it is live golfers right now are taking the offseason seriously. It's not every single one of them, but guys like Louis Oosthuizen, Dean Burmester, we're seeing Cam Smith play in events. We're seeing Mark Leishman playing in events. We're seeing a lot of these live golfers, Joaquin Niemann playing in events. I think this year is going to be really good for a lot of these individuals that are playing, absolutely playing some really good golf right now heading in. I think a lot of guys made that mistake in the first offseason to where they're like, oh, I'm just going to take all this time off. I've made all of this money now. And of course, on the PGA Tour side and the fans around the PGA Tour, that was always the big gripe, right? That you cannot have a league to where you get all this money and guys are still going to be competitive and want to work hard. That's not the case. I brought up baseball as an example because I've been in Major League Baseball locker rooms and I've seen guys to where the guys that are making the most amount of money were the hardest workers and they had already guaranteed their contracts. So it's like, shit, there is definitely going to be some guys that are going to really separate themselves. And I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see that some of these guys that took the offseason seriously are going to head into the season playing really, really high-level golf. And that did not happen last year. That did not happen coming out. And it was pretty much across the board. We did not see great golf right from the onset, from the start with live golf. We always say with the PGA Tour because guys are grinding. Now, the argument there is, well, they play in 1 million goddamn golf tournaments and it never stops. Sure, I get that. But you don't have to play in all of those golf tournaments. There's just some guys like Sung J M that is going to play in every single goddamn golf tournament that he possibly can. So there's that. I was really happy to see Louis Oosthuizen go back-to-back on the DP World Tour. I love Louis' golf swing. I love his style, just the type of person that he is, and it's cool to see him winning. And again, same with somebody like Dean Burmester, where it's like, shit, this guy's got a real opportunity here, and he's taking it really, really seriously. The one that's still a little bit disappointing that I hope he gets his freaking game back is Cam Smith. Cam Smith has struggled in this offseason, getting his game back into shape and everything. And then, you got guys like Dustin Johnson out there who's on his yacht. You got Lee Westwood who's taking a lot of time off. I mean, so it's not across the entire league. And I would love to kind of see that kind of come to fruition where you see some of these guys surpass some of the guys that have been really good for a long time but aren't taking it nearly as seriously. And that's going to be exciting to see. Now, the last thing with live golf here is Jon Rahm, okay? Who's going to be on Jon Rahm's team? And if you've followed good old Greg Norman, he was saying, oh, we got to dozen plus guys that are all fighting for contracts to be on that team, so on and so forth. And obviously there was a lot of speculation that some big names were going over. Somebody like Tony Finau, somebody like Victor Hovland. Well, hate to tell you, but I just saw something, and it's worrisome for the Live Golf fans that, I just saw a name that I haven't seen before, that all of a sudden they're trying to hype up like, oh, this is a big deal for this Spaniard guy to come over. I've never heard of this guy, and I don't even have his name on me offhand. So, but they're trying to say that this guy's going to get it. I feel like, yeah, you're going to see three guys that are not going to be super big names coming on to Jon Rahm's team. I think that's just where it's at right now. And we'll see. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I can tell you is that I don't know who's going to be going over right now to Jon Rahm's team. There's been a lot of contract negotiations and stuff going on, especially in the background with agents. So I don't expect, because they blew their load on Jon Rahm. They paid him $600 million. You think all of a sudden they're going to throw out another $600 million to a guy like Tony Finau? Probably not. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. It was kind of like when they got DJ with the $300 million. You weren't seeing them throwing out a whole bunch of bigger contracts to other guys. They started signing a lot of smaller pro guys. Like, they got their big guy in Jon Rahm. Like, they got their catch. And now we shall see who they fill it out with. But I will say this. I don't know if it's going to be super competitive for a first year for Jon Rahm because of the players that he ends up having on his team, at least from a team aspect. Jon Rahm, still in very good form. However, I will say, I did hear Mountain Shadow Skins game. He bogeyed number 9. Bogeyed. I think it was either 9 or 10. They were telling me that he bogeyed, which all of these holes are like 110 yards, or 90. So if Jon Rahm's struggling with the wedge game and everything, and not really playing that well, he's probably taking quite a bit of well-deserved time off, and he's probably going to cruise into the season. I mean, he's not doing media right now. And again, that's going to be an interesting scenario as we move in to 2024. And this is the last live stream of the year, folks. So I just want to wish everybody happy holidays. I hope everybody has a safe holiday season. Don't drink and drive with the Bushwood spirits, okay? So let's make sure that you are doing it responsibly. I am in the studio today, so I'm not driving anywhere. And granted, this Bushwood spirits, give it a shot, folks. Pull Hook. So go to bushwood.com, use promo code PullHook, get yourself 10% off, and then we'll go from there. But also, swannies.co. The promo code there for all of our listeners is PullHookGolf25. And again, when you use the promo code, not only do you get 25% off your entire order, but you also are supporting the podcast, okay? So make sure, and Swannies has some great stuff. I was out on the golf course the other day with a couple buddies of mine, and all of a sudden, weather's starting to get colder out here in Arizona, and he pops on a hoodie, and I go, wow, nice Swannies. And he goes, absolutely love it. I was like, you used the promo code PullHookGolf25? He's like, I got it during Black Friday. He's like, I got it for 50% off. I'm like, damn, that's a good deal. I can't frown upon that. But I've noticed quite a few guys that I play golf with now are starting to rock Swannies, which is pretty cool. And certainly, Run PMC. I hope Bobby comes back soon. I hope that he comes back in 2024. He's been dealing with a couple things, and certainly looking forward to seeing him back. But we will continue to press on in terms of getting good interviews in here, as well as some of these one-on-one live streams that I do. I'm going to make sure that you guys are up to speed throughout the entire season. Everything that goes on, you're going to hear about, at least the important stuff, okay? I mean, I've been talking for an hour now, so certainly I don't want to bore you guys with some of the stuff that really doesn't matter, like who finished last at the PGA Tour Q School, but we will have segments once again coming on. We've got some experts in betting that we might break out a new segment in 2024, but look forward to the new season next year of the Pull Hook Golf Podcast, and I appreciate all the support and love from everybody that listens to this podcast. It continues to grow, and you guys are absolutely killing it as listeners and audience members, so I greatly appreciate you, and once again, hope that everybody has a happy holiday season. Thank you, Rum PMC. Appreciate that. You threw in a little happy holidays, so happy holidays, everybody, and once again, Pull Hook Golf. Thank you, everybody. Have a happy new year as well, because, again, next week's episode has already been recorded, so I will not be talking to all of you until 2024, and I can't wait. See you, everybody. Have a good one.